but feel free to just jump in and ask questions whenever. Before we get started, I want to give a little update on what Max was working on in the last 2 weeks. So if you were here for our crypto meeting, we hosted a competition to see who could post or who could make the best design for a cryptocurrency. And as we know, Johnny's Booty Coin won. So it's actually minted and you can buy it. This is not financial advice, but you could purchase this crypto if you want to. I think each coin is like less than a penny. So
What did you say? What's the description of it?
It was like, I'm a track athlete, so you don't want to take them.
No, what was the second part?
Wait, what was it?
Oh yeah, if you buy it, they get a slap your
Oh,
ass.
if you what?
Max did buy like 100 crypto.
No.
I'm gonna buy it for the whole floor.
But anyways, we'll get into it. Has anyone heard of commercial banking before, or is interested in going into that field? Does anyone want to give like a one-sentence summary of what they think it is?
I mean, it's just banking for businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think when you think of banking, think of like walking into a bank and I want to withdraw some money, I want to deposit money. That's retail banking. Commercial banking is a similar concept, but businesses. So if a business needs money for some investments or they want to open up a new shop or something, they go through this. We arranged these slides so it's sorted by starting compensation. So in the top left, you could see a rough estimate of starting compensation in St. Louis. Obviously, St. Louis and like New York numbers will differ. So you can estimate like around 50 to 60K. It's very sales heavy, so the more sales you get, the more you'll make. So there is a big commission aspect to it. One of my friends who did work in commercial banking told me about the work-life balance, and she quote-unquote said amazing. She said it was a lot of networking events, a lot of like lunches, baseball games. So if you want to do very little work and make still a good amount of money, I think this is for you. But we also want to talk about like what are the main firms and what are the main firms recruiting from SLU. So one of the realities of being financed at SLU is that it's a non-target school. So a lot of the top firms you'll see here don't even recruit at SLU. So I want to give a little more perspective on what firms you can see if you're interested in this to apply for internships or full-time jobs. So we see like Enterprise Bank and Trust, UC Bank, Commerce Bank. These are some of the biggest firms that recruit from SLU. I don't know too many people in commercial banking. But if you're interested, reach out after and we can connect you with someone. Interviews. Everyone knows what a behavioral interview is? Yeah? This is basically like, tell me about a time when you did something. So this is pretty standard across every single field, whether you're like pre-med or, I don't know, nursing or engineering, you'll probably have a behavioral interview in every single thing. They might have simple technical interviews where you can demonstrate your understanding of financial statements, so cash flow, balance sheet, income statement, and then exit opportunities. After you work a certain time at a firm or a certain time in a field, there's a period when you can exit and go into a different, a different career path. So this is a really important consideration. Some fields or some careers can silo you. Like if you're going into engineering, it might be a little hard to exit from engineering into like private equity, right? So exit opportunities are super important to consider when you're going into a specific career. Here, most of the people in commercial banking, they end up staying in commercial banking but scaling larger. So you can see instead of working as a commercial banker, they'll oversee regions of commercial banks. Another exit is corporate finance. But as he said, like commercial banking is just lending to businesses with loans, lines of credit, cash management, and it's very client communication heavy. So if you like talking to people, understanding financial statements, networking a lot, this is a great field for you. Anyone know what corporate finance or FP&A is? Or anyone done an internship in that? No? Okay, that is interesting. Corporate finance is what I would say is the biggest sector in finance. Most of the people in finance end up going this route. So when you see a financial analyst or a financial planning and analysis role, this is all corporate finance. So this is basically what you see at every single firm. Every firm in the country has a corporate finance team. So the bigger the firm, the better the position, I guess. So Google, Amazon, Apple, all these are great firms, so they have great corporate finance divisions. Unfortunately, Google, Amazon, Apple, these firms don't recruit at SLU. So, the best firms that you can find if you're interested in corporate finance, Boeing, WWT, Enterprise, Anheuser-Busch, Equifax. I interned at Equifax 2 summers ago, and what I can say about the work-life balance is I never saw someone come before 8 a.m. or stay after 3 p.m. The office was a ghost town after 3 p.m. If that's something you want, this is great. The pay is pretty decent starting salary. Work-life balance is super, super flexible. But what they do in corporate finance is they forecast and budget for the future. So when you think of accounting, you're thinking about debiting credit, recording or putting in the ledger like the past financials of the company. When you think of FP&A or corporate finance, it's all about future. So what's the company going to do for the future? This is where you forecast, you budget. Where do I think the company's expenses are going to be? Where do I think the company's revenue is going to be in the future? You do that for a company. The interviews are mainly behavioral. I know when I applied to Equifax, it was only behavioral. I didn't have any technicals, but I have seen some people in technical. If you like working in Excel, doing dashboards, all this stuff, like light technicals, corporate finance is a really, really good career path. It's relatively chill. Budget season is a little more stressful, but you're getting a pretty good salary for a very flexible career path. All of these also are pretty big companies. They give great benefits. I know Boeing has a really, really good 401k plan, and PTO is also really good. So the work life is really, really chill, and you make a pretty good starting salary. People usually stay in corporate finance and just work your way up a career. So have you heard of a CFO? Yeah, so CFO is the ideal end goal of someone working in corporate finance. You work your way up that corporate ladder until you get to that CFO. Exit opportunities are not very great, but a CFO is a lucrative career. Like if you're a CFO, you're making big bucks. So that's what people strive for. And there are so many pathways at the career fairs that are recruiting from SLU. Like if you talk to any firm at the career fair, all of them are recruiting for corporate finance. So this is definitely the biggest pathway you'll see. Then we have real estate. This is probably the field that I'm least familiar with. I know there are 2 types of real estate. One is like being a realtor, and then 2 is like actually working for a real estate firm. I know realtors, however you say it, are doing the worst right now in this economy. I think most of them are like not even making a living, so it's not very attractive right now. But a career in real estate is a little different. You have a fixed salary, so it's not like a realtor where it's commission based. Like if I don't sell a house, I'm not eating bread tonight. That's what realtors are. But for this, you have a fixed salary, so it's much more stable. Starting comp is pretty good. Work-life balance is not too bad. Top firms that recruit from SLU, Cushman & Wakefield, these others, I'm not too familiar with them. But it's literally just like buying, selling properties for different companies. So a company wants to expand a location. How do they finance that? How do they support that? You're basically like a realtor for a different company. You need a lot of people skills, financial modeling, market knowledge. This is a pretty good career path. I know someone that interned at one of these companies, so I do know for a fact that they recruit from SLU. So I probably wouldn't be the person to talk to about this, but I can definitely connect you with some people if you're interested in this. Okay, wealth management. This is what I would say is the core of SLU. If anyone here is in finance, you probably know that there's no focus on corporate finance. SLU's finance department is all about investments or wealth management. So all the classes, stocks, bonds, derivatives, APM, all of these are tailored to either career and wealth management or just investments in general. This is honestly a criticism that I've had over the past few years. Like corporate finance is the biggest unit, but it has no focus at SLU, so it doesn't add up in my opinion. But for wealth management, starting salary is pretty good, 65 to 75 with variable bonus. Work-life balance isn't too bad either. I'm sure most of you have heard of these firms, Morgan Stanley, Edward Jones, Bank of America. Unfortunately, going to a non-target, most of these don't recruit at SLU, but Edward Jones is a firm that does, and it's right in our backyard. Who's heard of the Dow Jones before? Yeah, fun fact, the Dow Jones is named after Edward Jones and Charles Dow. So it's pretty cool to have him in our backyard. This is basically like, think of a financial advisor on steroids. You're basically providing financial advice in a large scale to high income clients. So your clients are very wealthy people who need their money managed, and you're doing that for them. What I've seen, anyone here know Dr. Dolman? Yeah, Dr. Dolman's a stocks professor. So if you're going into your junior year, maybe even sophomore year, you'll take Dr. Dolman's class. He actually started his own wealth management firm. This is a trend you see among a lot of people in wealth management. Instead of exiting to a different career, they'll actually start their own practice. So they take that industry expertise and they say, why do this for someone else when instead I can do this for myself? We'll get into CFA in a bit, but you don't need a CFA to be in wealth management. You do need to take the FINRA exams. They're mandatory if you want to sell or recommend securities. So, like, I can't recommend anything here at PPM because I don't have this license. These are people that are constant readers. So when you're recommending a portfolio to someone, you need to know what's constantly happening in the market in case someone asks me questions. Like, if I recommend a stock to you and you ask me, why did you recommend me the stock? I need to tell you, this is the reason, X, Y, Z. If you ask me, oh, what about the tariffs? How does this impact my stock? I need to have an answer. So everyone I see in wealth management is always up to date on what's happening in the economy. They're constantly posting on LinkedIn, oh, this happened yesterday, this happened yesterday. What does it do to your portfolio? So if you like reading a lot, if you look at the market every day, if you want to make a pretty good living and use SLU as a pipeline, wealth management is a really, really good career for you. SLU is a really good pipeline because the whole curriculum is tailored to this practice. So there's so many professors that can connect you with people, and there's so many firms that are recruiting for this as well. Also, like, jump in if you have any questions on any of this, or feel free to ask after. This meeting is a little more boring than the other ones, but I hope you can take something away. Alright, this is where we start to getting to some of the big bucks. Asset management is the next career path. You can see a starting salary in St. Louis of 80 to 90K, which is really, really high for finance in St. Louis. But work-life balance starts to pick up. Top firms in St. Louis, there are two main ones, NISA and Kennedy Capital Management. I know NISA actually both of these recruit heavily at SLU. I know some people have interned at both of these places. But this is where it starts to get a little harder, especially applying to these jobs. The interviews are tough. They expect like a lot of background. You have to have some experience, you have to have some knowledge going into this. So the interviews are behavioral, and then they'll ask you about the current market trends. So they'll say, what's something happening in the economy that interests you right now? And you gotta think of something on the spot. So they expect that you know and you're up to date with what's currently happening. I remember in one interview, someone just asked me, like, tell me something going on in the world that interests you. So it's not a question that you would expect or prepare to be asked, but they're just testing, does this guy even know what's happening? Exit opportunities are great. You constantly see people going lateral in finance. So you can see people in asset management going to equity research, hedge funds, private equity, all these pretty lucrative careers. But a little different from wealth management, you're managing investments for large institutions, not just high wealth clients. So these are different institutions who need their investments managed. Like before, heavy overlap with stocks and bonds classes. The concept of time value of money, Sharpe ratio, these all come into the picture with asset management. I know this for a fact with NISA, they require some technical background. So if you don't know how to code in like Python or some other languages, I don't know for sure which languages, I know you're at a disadvantage, but don't let that limit you from applying. But I think there is some technical background required for some of these firms.
When you say like large institutions, does that also include like nonprofits such as universities trying to manage their endowments?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think they issue, they'll definitely issue like bonds to different universities, because universities also have different loans and debt that they have under their belts. So these asset managers can help issue that. Not too familiar with asset management, but I do know NISA does a lot with debt. Okay, this is my bread and butter. Consulting is what I'm most passionate about. So if you have questions about this, feel free to let it rip because I like consulting a lot. Starting comp is 85 to 95. Work-life balance, it varies a lot. For example, this summer, my manager, I never saw him come after me or leave before me. He was working like a demon. But that does vary. So some weeks you might have 30 hours a week, 30 hours of work, and some weeks you might have like 80. Within consulting, there's two different fields. There's strategy consulting and then there's management consulting. Anyone know the difference between both of these?
Strategy consulting is more like, you know, how do they like strategically change the management of a company, like the leadership, the operations, all. The other one is like, what is it?
Yeah, so it's pretty close. I wouldn't say change the management, but I would say work with the management.
Yeah, work with management.
Yeah. So in strategy consulting, you're working right there with the C-suite. You're working with the CFO, the CIO, the CTO, maybe even the CEO of the company, and outlining the vision of the company. You're saying, what can I do to help the revenue generating side of the business? So say I'm running, I don't know, like a ice cream shop, and I want to expand the ice cream shop to, what's the city, Chesterfield, right? I'll hire some strategy consultants that can outline the profitability if I open that shop in Chesterfield. So they're the most lucrative people, the smartest people in the room that say, here's why you should do this and what you should do. Then we get the management consultants, which are gonna do, how can I actually execute this? So then we'll start working with the supply chain consultants, the technology consultants, to figure out where do I get this ice cream from? How do I implement the technology so that this shop can actually run? These two work together. Strategy is more lucrative. It's maybe one or two people working with the company. Management, you'll have a large team of people. The top firms in strategy, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, they're called MBB. This is tier 1 consulting firms. Pretty difficult to get into. Management, you can see Accenture, the Big Four, Deloitte, EY, PwC, KPMG, and Capgemini. The good thing about SLU is that a lot of these management consulting firms actually recruit from SLU. So Accenture will start recruiting, and then the Big Four. You'll probably see these at every career fair. One thing to note is that when you see these Big Four at career fairs, they're usually recruiting for accounting. So the Big Four, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC, they're Big Four accounting firms. So they usually recruit for like tax, audit, or some other CPA track, but they also have a consulting arm. This consulting arm is a different side of the business from the accounting side. So this is, in my opinion, a little more prestigious, and it's more focused on tech management consulting. All strategy consultants are management consultants, but all management consultants are not strategy consultants. So strategy is usually more lucrative, it comes with a higher pay, and it's pretty tough to get into from SLU, but that's not to say it's not possible. Any questions on consulting?
Where do you work?
So I was working at Maryville Consulting Group, which got acquired by Accenture. So Gabby and I are going to be starting with Accenture this coming year.
I have a question. Like, how is a finance major like related to consulting, or is there like a better major like BTM for consulting?
That was honestly the biggest question I asked my manager this summer. I said, "Why are you recruiting me when you should be recruiting someone in tech? Like, what does finance have to do with this?" And from my opinion, it has nothing to do with it. I applied nothing that I learned in school in my internship, and I probably will apply nothing in school in full time. That's not to say my major was useless. I have a lot of I think there are a lot of pros to university besides just the classes. Like in my opinion, you come to school for the network and not for the classes. You guys might have a different opinion, but that's just mine. But they still recruit heavily from finance. I think just the strategic thinking, problem solving, being quantitative, all of these skills are transferable, even if it's not directly related to finance. How many people here are doing the Maryville case comp? Okay, so a good amount of people. Yeah, this is a great way to just get exposure to what we do as consultants, and also just present yourself in the face of recruiters. So I recommend doing the CaseCom for all of you, even if you're not interested in consulting. It's a great way to showcase your skills, your presentation skills, problem solving, creative thinking. It's a really good exposure into like, what does a business do? So there's so many different layers of a business, and it's really hard to understand how everything works together until you actually apply yourself and put yourself in that position. Any other questions on consulting?
I know you guys went to Maryville, so now that they're acquired by Accenture, are they gonna start leaning away from SLU or kind of get more involved because now they're a larger corporation?
Yeah, so I know for the next 2 or 3 years, Accenture will recruit at SLU. After that, it's kind of unknown. Accenture previously never recruited at SLU, so for you guys, like, this is a really good opportunity to get exposure to the biggest consulting firm in the planet. So for the next 2 to 3 years, at least in your guys' class, they will recruit from SLU.
So like, I know like you said earlier, like the Big Four, they recruit primarily from, for like accounting, like, do they still do like finance also, or? Recruit for finance?
There might be a corporate finance arm under the Big Four. I know it's primarily accounting. They do recruit consulting from SLU as well. I know some people that intern in consulting there. I'm not sure if they have finance interns.
Cause I know it's like, I know a lot of like BTM accounting majors, like they go to the Big Four.
Yeah.
Consulting.
Yeah, BTM is a great pipeline into consulting. I really like the BTM major. I actually regret not doing it myself. But yeah, accounting is the main that they recruit for.
That's my major, BTM, so.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like very well with finance or anything.
I mean, I'll always vouch for finance. I think finance, as you can see in this presentation, like, there's so many different pipelines. Like, consulting itself is a very broad term, but in this presentation, we didn't even cover all of them. Like, there's wealth management, asset management, corporate finance. You can even go accounting, get your CPA, investment banking. Like, there's so many different fields in finance that you can go to with a finance degree. So it's just understanding those concepts, but BTM and finance is a great combo.
Is this presentation gonna be in the group me, by the way, or no?
Say it again?
Is this presentation gonna be in the group me by chance or
In
no?
GroupMe?
Yeah.
We'll upload the video
Okay.
to our YouTube channel. I can
Oh.
show you after.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I can probably share it in the GroupMe.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
Okay, now we get into investment banking. Has everyone here heard of investment banking? Even if you don't know what it is, you've heard of it vaguely. The thing you could probably associate with investment banking is stress, but ton of money, right? That's what everyone says about investment banking. Starting comp is over 100K with up to 100% bonus. So right out of college, you're making really good money, but there's no concept of work-life balance. That's what everyone knows already though. So like, what exactly is investment banking? There are 3 different types of firms you can recruit for: bulge brackets, middle market, and elite boutiques. These are basically the biggest, second biggest, and these are small firms that don't have a large presence, but they're really elite, so hard to get into. Even in consulting, you could use similar terms, but boutique is a term that's known across all industries. Boutique just means a small firm. Small doesn't mean bad though. Small can mean really prestigious, like Evercore, Lazard. These are really prestigious firms. They just have a smaller base. The sad reality is from SLU, Stifel is the only investment bank I know that recruits from SLU. I don't know if you guys know any others. SLU is not a great pipeline into investment banking. They rely heavily on target schools, and for finance, SLU is not a target school. That doesn't mean you can't do it. I know someone from SLU that interned at Stifel, and I know someone else that interned in investment banking at a different firm outside of Missouri. It's definitely possible, but it's tough. Interviews, they have behavioral, obviously. Technicals are really intense. I know people prep for months for the technical interviews. They're very, very, very intense. But if you do it, land it, you start at a really, really good position. Exit opportunities are also fantastic. You can go into private equity, VC, hedge funds, corporate strategy, pretty much anything. But in investment banking, you're advising companies on mergers and acquisitions. So should a company merge with another? Should a company acquire another? These are some of the simple concepts. Anyone know the difference in mergers and acquisitions?
Well, like an acquisition is when a bigger company buys a smaller company, and a merger is when like two firms of like close to equal, they're not generally perfectly equal, but close to equal size, like combine to become one company. That way they can like improve their margins.
Yeah.
Hit both target bases.
Yeah, great definition. So for example, this summer Gabby and I worked at Maryville Consulting Group. We got acquired by Accenture. Has anyone heard of Bank of America? So you know Merrill Lynch? Bank of America merged with Merrill Lynch. Or Exxon, the oil company, they merged with Mobil, some other company, and now they're Exxon Mobil. So those are some examples. They also raise capital for companies and IPOs. Who here knows what an IPO is? Someone who hasn't spoken yet? Cohen?
Oh, yeah, so an IPO is basically when like a company goes public for the first time.
Yeah.
And so, then they're able to buy stock of the company, and so it's like about what they should be offered for that stock and all that.
Yeah. Do you know why a company would want an IPO?
Because they can raise more capital.
Exactly, yeah. So companies IPO because they want to raise more capital. So if they want to pursue different investments require money. So if I want to open a new branch, if I want to start a new project, I'll need money. So I IPO. So now anyone can invest in my company. We don't just have private owners of the company, now it's a public company. So investment banks help with that. Private equity is a common exit. This is where firms directly buy other firms and improve them and then later sell them at a profit. This is a very lucrative career. When you think of risks in a job or a lot of money that you're handling in a job, that's the more lucrative it is. So in private equity, there's a lot of risk. You're buying a firm, you're upgrading it and reselling it, you're taking on a lot of risk as an analyst. That lot of risk is rewarded with a lot of money. And then, yeah, long hours, high stress, but super high compensation. Okay. Who here is interested in taking the CFA? Maybe one or two people. So I was hoping that would be a little more, but CFA path, what is it? Chartered? Certified financial, okay. Certified financial advisor. It's a tough path, but it can lead to a lot of rewards. So in the CFA, you have to pass 3 levels. So there are 3 key exams. It's basically like a big certification. So you're taking 3 exams, and you pass all 3 of them, then you are a CFA holder. They're notoriously difficult. I think I've never seen someone pass all 3 attempts on their first try. You have to study like at least 6 to 8 months in advance. They're very difficult, but if you do pass it, you can go into different careers like investing, asset management, equity research. It looks really, really good on a resume. So I know some people in corporate finance that have a CFA. I know some people in consulting that have a CFA. It basically just upgrades your salary because they know you're so knowledgeable. This is a path that a lot of people in SLU recommend. I know Dr. Goldman is a big preacher of this. If you take the Applied Portfolio Management class and you do the CFA competition, they'll actually pay for your round one exam. So each exam costs a couple $1,000. If you do that competition, they'll pay for your first round. So it's a pretty big incentive. But it's huge credibility in the investments or finance world. If you do have your CFA, people instantly associate that with respect and a higher salary. So it's a very, very good qualification. Okay, we had about 10 people interested in consulting. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the consulting internship recruiting, but this is pretty general around all finance majors, or all finance career paths that we talked in this presentation. The recruiting process doesn't start now. The recruiting process starts months in advance. So in April, if I'm applying to an internship next summer, my recruiting process starts April before that. So over a year in advance. April to June, I'm doing interview prep. I know I touched on it throughout the presentation, but some of these career paths have really tough interviews. I know for consulting, we have case interviews. Case interviews are tough. You have to take months of preparation, read books, practice casing a lot, do estimation questions, do all this preparation, and then you'll only be decent at it. It's really tough to master the case interview. For investment banking, technical interviews are really, really tough. Whatever career path you go into, you'll have non-behavioral interviews, and these interviews are tough. So you need to start practicing months in advance. There are usually great resources online. For consulting, I can recommend some books if you reach out to me after. But this prep starts months in advance. As I said throughout the presentation, SLU is a non-target school. So if you submit your resume online and apply online to internships, the likelihood is your resume is going to be thrown in the trash. The only way to avoid that is to get a referral. To get a referral, you need a network. You need to coffee chat people and convince them to apply on your behalf or submit their name on your application. It's not easy. You're talking to a random person who's only met you online or has maybe seen you in person once or twice, and they have to submit an application saying, I think this person will be a good candidate. If they do that though, you're guaranteed a first round interview at most places. So referral is really, really big. And that's why you start in advance. If you start when applications are open, it's really hard to get a referral, and the realities of a non-target school come into play. So once you do that, you polish your resume, you do interview prep, networking, all of that, then applications actually open in July through September. So I know McKinsey, Bain, BCG, all those applications open in July. They're still open. Most consulting firms open in, I would say, like August. So August through September is definitely a time to start applying. Like, make a Google spreadsheet of hundreds of different companies and just apply. But with those applications, if you don't have a referral, you're kind of wasting 10 minutes on each application, because the reality is it's really hard to land an interview. So step one, try to get a referral. Step two, apply. And then once you do get that interview, you don't want to bomb it. And that's where the interview prep comes into play. If you've been practicing interviews for all this time, you can ace the interview. So it's a really tough process to land an internship. It's not that straightforward where you just apply, get the internship. There's a lot of prep that goes into it. And I think that's something that's not discussed enough in the university, which I'd like to discuss more. But internship prep is a lot of work. Don't let that discourage you, because it is September. I got my corporate finance internship with just a behavioral. Behaviorals are not that difficult, but they do require prep as well. So yeah, that's a rough timeline for consulting. Corporate finance is usually a little later. I can't speak so much about wealth management, asset management. Investment banking starts over a year in advance. So if you're looking for an internship for next summer, it's probably too late for investment banking, but maybe there's something still open. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, last slide. How do you distinguish your resume? We go to a non-target, so how do we get a resume so it's not thrown out, even if we don't have a referral? What I would say is all applicants for internships have a good resume, or have a good GPA. Everyone has a solid GPA. This is the bare minimum. If you don't have a good GPA, the likelihood is you won't even meet that bare criteria. So GPA is like a bare minimum. Once you have that, how do you even land an experience or an interview? Like I talked about before, case competitions are a really good way. You get to get that exposure in front of a firm, showcase your skills, even highlight that on your resume if you do well. Networking, coffee chat, cold emails, career fairs, even if you're a Nepo baby, utilize that. My cousin, she told me in her application process, for every job that she applied to, she sent 5 to 7 cold emails, either on LinkedIn or to their email for every single job, and she applied to over 1,000. So networking is something that shouldn't be under notice. It's super, super important. Then your resume. When it comes to your resume, formatting is actually really big. The prettier it looks, the better. If it doesn't look pretty, the odds of it getting thrown into the trash are even higher. So you need to make sure you don't have a single typo, a single spacing error. All of that is super, super important. I know we're primarily a stocks club, but if anyone wants us to look over their resume, I'd be happy to do so. And then interview prep. Technicals and case interviews are hard. I know this summer I was struggling with case interview prep. It is pretty difficult. But preparing early, finding the right resources, all of that is really helpful to landing a great internship. But yeah, that's all I have for this presentation. Any questions?
Did you always want to go into consulting?
No. After my corporate finance internship at Equifax, I realized that this is kind of boring. I didn't want to do it. Corporate finance, I don't want to discourage anyone who's interested in it, but it's a little repetitive. Every month you're doing forecasts, every year you're doing budget. So every month you're kind of expecting the same type of work. The day-to-day work might change, but the structure of it is the same. With consulting, every day you're probably doing something else. Even if you have the same overall approach, so maybe I'm doing an implementation, I'll do an implementation for one company, then I'll go to an entirely new company, which has entirely different problems. I'm going to figure out what those problems are and then offer my solution. So I love consulting because you're basically a problem solver for different companies. Everyone has a different problem, and you're going to provide your approach to that. So.
Do you have any tips for the case competition?
Yeah. I would say the two biggest things are, one, your slides should look really good, and two is how confident you are. You can say a lot of bullshit, but if you sound really confident, it can come off as convincing, I guess. So confidence is really key. Don't use any note cards. Stand up there and deliver a pitch like with a smile and like a strong voice. And then with questions, be prepared to defend anything on your slide. So I didn't do a great job today because I didn't have a great understanding of real estate, for example, or asset management. But if you have real estate or asset management on your slide, be prepared to go super in-depth on that. They can ask questions on anything. That's how the real world works. So in the case competition, the same rule applies.
If I'm having a coffee chat, what are some like good questions to ask?
Yeah, I would research their background. I always like to do a LinkedIn stalking before every coffee chat, so I understand like who this person is. I tend to avoid the generic questions you can find online. So try to craft up some creative questions that show you've taken your time to do research on this person and you're genuinely interested. Anyone can search on Google best questions for a coffee chat, and they've already experienced that tons of times. So you want to try to differentiate yourself. So take some time, research that person, think of some creative questions tailored to that. Even at career fairs, same thing, or a job interview. Don't just search up on Google questions to ask after an interview. Tailor your questions to your specific recruiter. So if you have an interview, figure out who's interviewing you beforehand so you can research that person on LinkedIn or their background in the company or something and ask some questions tailored to that.
So I think like it's like the purpose of like a coffee chat is just to like network within the company and just to get like a referral.
It's not only to get a referral, it's also to understand like, is this what I want to do?
Oh yeah.
Is this the right fit for me? A referral is great, but at the end of the day, if you talk to that person, you're like, hold up, this isn't what I want to do, then you shouldn't even pursue that. So it's a little bit of both.
When you ask for a referral, you don't like just ask them straight up, right? Just like.
You can ask them straight up, yeah. At the end of your coffee chat, if it goes well, you can be like, hey, do you think I could get a referral from you? I'm planning on applying to this job in 2 weeks, and I would really appreciate it or something. So I have a template for like how to ask for a referral. I can share it with this one. And even if you're cold emailing someone, I have some templates on my phone for that. So reach out to me after. Any other questions? All right. This meeting was a little boring. I know no one likes to talk about this stuff.